And welcome to this update from Thinking the Unthinkable. I'm in Exeter in the west of England at the enormous Tipping Points conference, the conference discussing how tipping points are being crossed irreversibly, but there are positive ways forward. Let me give you a few highlights of what's come out and have struck me. First, the orthodoxy, the price and the cost of orthodoxy. Tanya Steele, who's the chief executive of WWF-UK, said the power dynamics are ones of delay, delay, delay. So we must stand up. It is now game on. We've got to move much faster in a much more determined way. The impact on society is something which is not necessarily openly talked about, but one leading researcher talked about the way in which society is being affected, and climate is affecting the economy, and the economy is affecting society and natural wealth and expectations of stability for all of our lives. Actually, it's moving in the wrong direction. Climate change and temperature increases have played a role in inflation. Cascading consequences are getting worse. And there were very graphic descriptions of what is happening when it comes to the Amazon, particularly the fact that there's environmental unease, environmental destabilization, and that in its own way is creating new forms of destabilization and an impact on society. And there's a lesson here, even if you don't come from the Amazon, understanding if it's happening in the Amazon, it could be happening in your city, in your town, and the kind of things which you're not naturally thinking about. But environmental instability, crossing tipping points, is already destabilizing society in ways which are deeply worrying. The cascading consequences are getting worse, said one leading speaker, reflected very much in another who said, we do not have the government systems to handle cascading difficulties ahead. And a university professor from Amsterdam, renowned in the field of economics and climate change, talked about how as the carbon budget shrinks, the elements for injustice increase. In other words, people are not realizing the enormity of the dynamics and the multiplication and the accelerator of what is underway, particularly when it comes to personal health and the impact of all of this, as with the current very high temperatures, certainly across much of Europe, the impact on our health and how that is becoming a climate accelerator with enormous implications, again, for society. But as we saw in Valencia, according to one speaker, what we saw in Valencia with those enormous flash floods, there was an attempt to change the dialogue, to change the narrative of what had really happened in order to suit certain political imperatives as opposed to the scientific imperatives of what needed to be learned. So what is emerging here is very much a view that there are big changes which need to take place, big changes in thinking, in analysis, but the need for speed, because without speed, then there is going to be really no chance of success. And there's got to be a lot of shouting about this. As one leading figure from Stockholm said, if there is no backlash, then we're not trying hard enough, because a backlash is showing that there is an impact, and an impact which will have repercussions for all of us, and the possibility of moving forward positively. So that's it from Tipping Points at this stage. More to come. Stay tuned.